Hello and welcome to the Leah Talks podcast. I'm Leah from Lakura Yoga, where we help busy mums find some stress-free moments and gain some mobility with yoga practices. And today we are joined by Amanda. So, can you just quickly introduce yourself? Let us know who you are and what you do.
Yes. Well, first, thank you for having me.
You're
My
welcome.
name is Amanda Ferret. My business is Value Yourself Counseling, and I'm an advanced EFT tapping practitioner that helps women learn to trust, love, and heal themselves from patriarchal programming, old stories, beliefs, grief, shame, anxiety, depression, you name it.
Yes, there's a lot that kind of changes people, isn't there?
Yes.
So, for anybody listening who is a bit unsure on what EFT is, can you explain a little bit more on that and how you got into tapping?
Yes. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it is a wonderful tool that is a combination of both Eastern and Western practices. So the Eastern practices, or part of it, is the tapping on your acupressure meridian points on your body. And there's kind of certain points that we use. And then the Western part is kind of combining that with some talk therapy, neurolinguistic programming stuff that kind of helps work the subconscious through what we're doing. So the tapping on the acupressure meridian points actually calms the sympathetic nervous system and takes us from fight, flight, freeze, those highly activated responses to a more rest and repose state so that we can make decisions from that frontal lobe, the more resource part of our brain versus the primal part of our brain. And it's just a wonderful tool that allows for emotional regulation, nervous system regulation, and so much more. And I found it, I was actually, I had a lot of loss in a very short period of time, and all while I was in grad school. So I would attend to the loss, go back to school, and I was in school for social work. So trying to learn how to take care of other people and do therapy with other people, and never had space or permission to basically truly take care of my own grief and take care of myself. And so, as I'm sure you are aware, like if we don't take good care of ourselves, we fall apart, we implode, or life can implode. And that happened. So I quit school, took a step back, and I thought it was just going to be a momentary break. And it turned into a permanent break. I now say I'm a proud grad school dropout. And that's because I did a lot of deep healing on my own. And I actually started my building a business. And I was at first a self care coach and grief coach. And I had been doing talk therapy. I tried EMDR, hypnotherapy. And then one of the business coaches I followed brought on Jackie McDonald to do some EFT tapping. And I followed along live on Facebook and instantly knew that this was the key for my own healing, for what I wanted to do in the world. So I was like, please tell me there's somewhere I can learn this. Sure enough, Jackie had an upcoming program, couldn't sign up fast enough. Then I found out she had an advanced program. So I could go even deeper, do more trauma based work, parts of self work, and truly help people in a way that felt in alignment with my old path a little bit, right? That deeper healing work that I could have been doing as a counselor. I now had a new tool and a new way to do that work that felt even more aligned because, I didn't have the bureaucracy of working for an agency and getting my licensure hours and all those hoops to jump through. I got to just truly meet people where they were at and help them and support them. This beautiful tool. So that's how I landed on becoming an advanced EFT practitioner. And it's absolutely amazing tool that I love coming on podcasts because I want the whole world to know about EFT tapping.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it's really changed your life.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm so sorry that you had to go through all that loss. And I do think when you look at a lot of big names in the world, no matter what they're doing, there's always like a trivial turning point in their life that brought them into what they're doing, and then sharing that with the world. And it's so powerful when you've got that behind you because, yeah, I mean, you know how much it helps, right? So now you
Yes.
can show everybody else that. That's absolutely amazing. I've only done a little bit of tapping myself. I do want to get a little bit more into it. And as you know, I lost a pet recently and it was
Yeah.
devastating. And I did do a little bit of tapping on that. And it was quite funny, like how with yoga, obviously I'm a yoga teacher, so it's very similar the way that we use it to release emotions and calm the nervous system. But it's amazing when you doing these things and suddenly like emotions just like start flooding out, don't they?
Yeah.
So how do
Yeah,
you
in tapping, I will see yawning, crying. Obviously, people will literally feel tingles or feel the energy or emotions moving through their body. Um, things might tense up, right, as things kind of move through the chakras or move through the different places in the body. And then we might do a round of tapping, and then all of a sudden that just releases. And so you feel this just kind of floodgates and flow out of your body. Um, Often my clients will have kind of a vulnerability hangover the day
yeah.
afterwards. So we talk a lot about, okay, self-care, make sure you're taking good care of yourself after a session. Because we do some of that deeper work. I can go back and do inner childhood, healing. I can work with your warrior, your wounded warrior, your wise woman. And then, my mentor talks about wildly wealthy woman, like that future self. I call it you're heading towards your wholly healed self, and help people kind of, so again, I can go back and do past work. I can do present work for emotional and nervous system regulation happening now. And we can do that future kind of forecasting, like calling in what you want to have for yourself. So that's another part of EFT that I absolutely love, is that it's, I feel like I'm more than a coach, because I'm not just figuring out how to help you reach future goals. I can go back and help you rework things in the past around memories and old events and traumas. I can do current, give you a tool to use in the current moment. And we can do that future work, which is just amazing when you can kind of take all of those parts, and then it's such a holistic tool, right? Because you're also doing, mind and body and soul work. So you're really getting this holistic tool, and treatment, because you're doing mind, body, soul, past, present, and future.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk lately on trauma as well, isn't there? And trauma being stuck in the body. Like
Yes.
I see it coming up on my social media feed all the time. So it's good that there is some kind of tool out there that can help with that, because people are becoming more aware of that now. So it's interesting that you mentioned the chakras actually. So that makes sense to me now with the meridian lines, but I've never really linked the two. Could you explain a little bit more on the chakras with EFT and how that kind of works?
I mean, you can kind of see this little chart behind me if you're watching the video.
Yeah.
So each chakra actually has its own affirmation statement, or start of an affirmation statement, I should say. And so the stage we're trying to get to when we use EFT is affirmation. So we have venting, language possibility language, excuse me, and affirmations. And so to figure out where you want to start tapping, you figure out what emotion you're feeling and where it's at in your body, and then how intense it is. And so we have a rating scale. So if you're between an 8 to a 10, you're in venting. You need to vent out whatever you're feeling or remembering, and give it space to just be held, seen, acknowledged, which can be really uncomfortable for people, especially here in the US and our culture. We don't want to talk about emotions. We don't, no, no, no. We want to move to the good stuff, right? Well, emotions are neither good nor bad, positive or negative. They all need attention. They all need honoring. So if you're between that 8 and a 10, you need to be in the venting stage and just honor whatever's showing up. If you're between a 4 and a 7, you're in that stage of possibility. So you can start to, hey, what do I want to feel instead? What else is next? How can I let this go? And then if you're, between a 0 to 3, that's when affirmations come into play. And so it works with the chakras, because we tune in. Where is this showing up in my body? So is it down here in my root chakra? Am I having pain in my, pelvis, hips, lower back? Do I need to work through that? Is it up a little bit higher? A lot of times for folks, it's in, that throat chakra or the heart chakra. We kind of hold it here, tenseness, that butterflies or tightness or hard time talking. Um, so we just tune in to where in the body is this showing up. And then if we're able to move through it, I bring in the affirmations, so that when folks are doing tapping on their own after we've worked together, they can say, okay, it's in this part of the body. Like, I'm going to acknowledge it by saying, I feel, or I know, or I see, whatever coordinates with the corresponding chakra. So it's just another way to move those emotions, energy through and out the body so that we don't hold on to it, so that we don't then have those negative physical effects. Because I wasn't moving my trauma out of my body and it actually disabled my body. I'm now trying to recover and recoup my body because I got to the point of disability.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful, isn't it? Um,
Yes.
I feel like I had a question come up and it's just gone out of my head. What was I gonna say? Um, don't you hate when that happens? There you go.
It
What
happens
chakra
to the
does that need
best
to
of
work
us.
on? Yeah. Um, okay, so on to the other question that I was going to ask anyway. I know that before you have fostered, so do you think that being a little bit more spiritual, because that's what it is really, isn't it? Do you think that that helped in fostering?
For the kiddo, so I actually became an emergency foster parent, and it was for a specific child because our we aligned in so many ways. It was a child who actually identified as trans, and they were needing and ready to go through transition, and the home they were in wasn't supportive, and it wasn't supportive in a variety of ways, and one of those was spiritual beliefs and practices.
Mhm.
And so I'm pagan, I'm a little more, woo, as some people like to call it here. And so this kiddo that was kind of exploring their own spirituality and knew they didn't have, conformed to any religious beliefs and hadn't ever been safe to kind of explore or question or practice or see what else was out there. um Finally was in a home where they got to explore and they got to learn and they got to watch me do some of my rituals and talk about things, and they were safe to talk about tarot and oracle cards. They were safe to ask questions about things and kind of lean in and start to explore what they wanted for themselves spiritually. And that was a really cool piece of being a foster parent, was getting to create an environment that wasn't exactly accessible for me, right? Like I didn't grow up in a super religious home. Um, in fact, my mom had grown up Mormon, my dad had converted, and they both had wanted to leave the church, but we lived in a town where they were building a new Mormon temple, and they found out where we lived, and they were showing up at our door every week. And then another piece of my family, like there was a little bit of Italian Catholic, and so I just was like, I don't know, some of this doesn't feel right for me, but I wasn't ever able to really explore spirituality until I got much older and could kind of be on my own and explore things for myself. And now it's really fun because I actually am teaching my mom certain things and she's adopting in certain things. And it's been a lot of fun.
I love hearing that. So many people that I have spoken to have been a little bit worried about spirituality because especially like in the yoga community there's this whole sense of is it a religion, and a little bit like does that mean you'll class yourself as a witch and all this stuff if you explore something that's a little bit different, that's not as common, I should say. But I guess we are quite privileged in the fact that we got to do this, and it
Right.
makes you definitely feel very grateful for, I guess, being able to when you hear other people's stories like that. And it is such a shame. And I'm so glad that the world is changing. And, this is why I'm doing this podcast. And it's really good to get our stories out there. So well done for the work that you do as well. But yeah, it's so good to see that it is changing the world, I guess. So for me, what I would say spirituality is more of like looking in towards yourself and bettering yourself. Would you agree, or would you have another way of saying like what spirituality is?
No, I think it's that and our connection to the outer world, right? Something bigger than ourselves. So,
Mhm.
where does that inner self meet something larger than ourselves? And I teach self care still. It's where I started, and it's still a part of the work I do. And I base the self care I teach off the wellness wheel. And so, one of the aspects of the wellness wheel is spiritual wellness. And so, yes, it's that inner growth, that reflecting on what's inside, and then how does that connect to that larger scheme of the universe. I had a friend that called it Gus, God, universe, source, whatever you want to look at, right? Kind of, so that connection to self and what is larger than self.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that. And yeah, that should have been definitely one of the first things I said was connecting with the other world out there as well. Um, I was listening to a podcast the other day actually, and she was on about vibrations and frequencies and stuff, and saying, 99.9% of everything you can see, you can't see. And yeah, it was so powerful. And it does make you think a lot about what is actually, say, in the room with you when it isn't just the things. And it's like, being scientifically proven now that energy is everywhere. And, all this, we could go off on a complete tangent on that one, but it is amazing when you look at it that way. So, um, what else have you done in your spirituality then, other than the tapping? I know you said you've done a tiny bit of yoga.
Yeah. So before my body was as disabled as it was, yoga was something I used to dabble in. And I know there's chair yoga and things now for bodies that aren't as able bodied. I live in a pretty rural community. So we don't have a lot of things, but thankfully, a lot of folks, it is an older and aging community where I live, a lot of retirees. And we do have a great YMCA, but I'm not sure they offer anything that's quite for those of us that, like I can't get down on the floor easily and get back up. But I know there's chair yoga and things out there like that. So I definitely would like to again get back into that. For my spirituality, I love where I live. I live on the Oregon coast here in the US. And so I 10 to 15 minutes, I can have my toes in the sand, or 10, 15, 20 minutes the other direction, I can be in the forest and do forest bathing. Um, so that's the really beautiful thing here is I have all these ways I can commune with nature and tune back into the world around me. Um, and again, connect my body. And, I like to go out and just stick my feet in the grass with my, no shoes on, ground into the earth, get my face in the sun when it shows, because it is the Pacific Northwest and it is rainy and cloudy here quite a bit. We're having a blue sky moment for now, but it was raining, pouring rain earlier today. So get my face in the sunshine when those moments allow. I have a great big dog, so I love to take him and kind of, you know, bring him along. He's quite the special soul. I love to stargaze and moon gaze as well. And he actually has taken that on. And there's times where I'll let him out at night to go potty and he won't come back in. And I will go find him in the backyard just staring up at the stars and moon
Oh,
and
that's
listening
so
to the
cute.
frogs croak. It's really special. So, he's a part of my spiritual journey as well. And he's so funny if I do any kind of like full moon rituals or anything else, like he wants to always be a part of it. It's very adorable. Um, but yeah, it's that, relationship to nature, my body, how I move through the world physically, mentally, emotionally. Um, you can see I've got the shelf of crystals, but I have crystals all around me and throughout my entire house. Um, so yeah, there's just all these little things that I incorporated. It's even as silly, like it's not silly. I enjoy it, but I will stir my coffee or tea in the morning and I will stir it counterclockwise while saying what I want to release. And then I will stir it clockwise, calling in what I want to call in for the day to serve my highest and greatest good. So again, it can be as simple as those little moments to, you know, yeah, a yoga or an EFT practice.
I love that. And that, stirring the coffee doesn't take very long as well. So it's not like
No,
you have to sit there and do a whole yoga class or a whole EFT tapping, or, it can be something so mindful. Like you said, just stepping out into nature, which
uh,
is so, so powerful.
yes.
So on that note, um, all right, this I do this on every single podcast, so this can be absolutely anything that you want. It doesn't have to relate to what we've talked about today, but can you give 3 pieces of advice about anything for anyone listening?
Well, I'll teach you a trick. So obviously, in some cultures, right, crying isn't always comfortable for other folks, right? And I learned that especially during my grief journey, like something would trigger my grief before I was even conscious to what it was, and the tears would be falling. And that's not always comfortable for folks. So if you feel the tears coming on and you need to buy yourself some time to get somewhere where it's a little more comfortable or safer to let those tears flow. Because I always think we should let the tears flow. They serve a need, they're a cleansing tool. But if you need to kind of give yourself some time to get to a safer space, you can take a finger and right at the bottom of your nose where that cartilage meets your lip, if you push in and up and act like you're holding a
Ooh.
sneeze. So you got
Yeah.
to go in and up. That will hold off the tears for you to like get yourself somewhere quickly. So again, you can just
Ooh.
act like you're holding a sneeze, which, in these pandemic, post-pandemic times,
Yeah.
you don't want to sneeze all over everything, right? So it totally looks like you're just trying to be polite and excusing yourself, and nobody really has to know that no, you were excusing yourself so you could go have an emotional release.
It's a good little trick.
Uh, with that, on the other side of that is if you do see somebody crying, often our first response is to automatically hand them tissues. And what that's subconsciously telling somebody else is, I'm uncomfortable with your tears. Can you please stop? Can you please handle them? So I always try to teach people to ask if somebody needs a tissue, or to just, if you know it's a space where tears might be happening, to just have them available so that nobody has to do that offering of like handing the tissues. Because
Mhm.
again, while the intent is a beautiful intent of like probably offering somebody, just something so that that subconscious message is, I'm uncomfortable with your tears. Can you please handle that? So that's another tip I'll give her on crying. And then third, you know, it's okay if you're not okay. We're all going to have, like, emotions are a part of the human experience. And there's the full range of them, right? From absolute joy and bliss and gratitude and abundance to grief and despair and sadness and loneliness. And we have to experience one extreme to even know and value and enjoy the other extreme when it happens, and have that gratitude for the spectrum of emotions that are possible. So my tip for you is to just develop that emotional intelligence by leaning in when the emotions show up, even if they are uncomfortable, because they have something to tell you, whether it's an unmet need or something that you need just recognized, validated, honored. um, Learn to tune in when those emotions show up so that you can flex those muscles of emotional intelligence and get your needs met, set healthy boundaries, and take good care of yourself.
Amazing tips. I love them. Thank you so much for sharing those. So,
You're welcome.
for anybody listening or watching, where can people find you? I'm going to leave all your links down below, but do you want to let us know where we can find you and how people can work with you?
Yes. So the easiest way people can work with me is to book a free 30-minute heading towards healing session. And you can find those at the link. It's through my Acuity. And the easiest way to find me is I have a website, valueyourselfcounseling.com, or my handles on social media, both Facebook and Instagram, are Value Yourself Counseling. And you can find me there and find the links to book a heading towards healing session, or you can download, I have a freebie, a intro to EFT tapping guide as well, so you can sign up and get that as well.
Oh, amazing. So, everybody, go and get that. I'll leave all the links down below. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.